Okay, this is Lucy and she is ready to be matted. So I thought I'd do a quick video just to show people, because some people have asked me how I do matting. It's not necessarily the right way, but it's how I do it. So I'm going to show you how I do it really quickly, I think. I use Psycho paint as a base. She's already been sealed, so I have actually sealed the whole of her body with a quite strong, not still diluted, but quite strong coating of Psycho paint so that she's completely sealed. So hopefully that will be enough, and then we mat on top of it. So what I'm going to do is take some of each of A and B, are approximately the same quantity. Don't need a huge amount, but I'm gonna mix enough for quite a large area. That's A. Whoops. How not to video things. Okay. And B. About the same amount of B. There we are. It's about the same. Some people are very precise with the measurements. That's fine. I'm not really. I found it is fine. Oops, I'm just going to cut the lid off this because it's not going to stand up. Yep. Okay, so we've got A and B of the Psycho paint, and I'm just going to mix that together. Make sure it's completely mixed, and then we dilute it right down. It's a fairly thin layer because it's already got quite a good layer on it, so it will stick to that, and hopefully that will give a really strong finish. Okay, I'm going to use thinner. I use Bob Ross thinner because it doesn't smell, and I find it really good. But whatever thinner you use, it's fine. So I'm gonna dilute it down to kind of the consistency of whole milk, sort of slightly creamy milk. I don't want it too thick, because if it's too thick it will go on thickly and the matting powder will stick to the actual thick layer of silicone and it will clump. And that's when you get the white powdery finish. Hang on. I'm doing this in the kitchen today because normally I work in my studio, but there just isn't the space to do this and video it, so. Okay, so I like it so that you can actually kind of see the silicone in it, so it's not just really watery, but it's really free flowing. We don't want it to be so thick that it actually goes on with a film. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do her head first of all and cure that, and then do the body in sections. I'm going to take her eyes out, don't freak out, because I'll be fixing those in once I've matted her. So I use a fairly big brush, soft, very soft, and I literally apply it over the area I want, fairly thinly, but so that it does go over, because you need to make sure you do cover everywhere, otherwise you will get areas of shininess after you've matted it and you'll have to go back and do it again, which is fine. You can do small areas at a time, but it's better if you get a really good coverage to start with, especially on the face, because you don't want any ridges or areas where it's joined up. So I'm just applying it fairly thinly, but so that it's a good coverage. I'm going to avoid the lip area if I can, as much as I can. We can go in afterwards and re-gloss the lips, but I don't want to be faffing around with the lips sticking together and that, so I'm going to avoid the inside of the lips. Okay, I have a kind of coverage there. Alright, what I'm going to do now is drag the silicone back off again. I don't want it to be showing, it needs to be damp, not wet. So I'm going in and basically dragging off any excess silicone so that it leaves a damp surface but not wet, no silicone in the creases. We don't want it collecting in the creases, because if it does that it will encourage the matting powder to clump. You can sort of pounce any areas off if you want to with a sponge, and you can also obviously go into the creases and make sure that there's nothing. But I mean, obviously, don't take the silicone off completely. Just take off the excess. You just don't want puddles. You just want it damp. There we are. I think we're done. And then immediately you apply the matting powder. I say immediately, you've got a little bit of time, but okay. I use some matting powder. I think it's fantastic, actually. I think it's marvellous. I know lots of people do use it, but this is what I do, and I use just a really soft blusher brush to apply it. Softer the better. So I'm probably a bit wasteful as a person, so I'm just going to apply it all over. You can pick up the excess afterwards and reuse it. So we can reuse anything that gets dropped, but I must admit I do prefer to have more on and not have to come back in and remat it than too little. So that's a head done. So what I do is, if I can, I will force cure it. I'll put her in the oven. The reason I'm doing small areas, you can do the whole baby all at once, but I like to cure it, which means that I can put her in the oven, I can scrunch up this bit and make sure that this gets cured properly, and then I can do the next bit and so on. So I'm gonna cure that part in the oven. You can see the difference already. Just make sure. So I'll be doing the head, then probably the body and arms, and then the legs, and then I'll turn over and do the same on the back. Okay, so I'm just going to cure this now. I'll come back in a few minutes. I'm going to put in the oven at 125, very, very low oven, for about 10-15 minutes. Okay, she's out the oven now and she's cooled down, so I'm just going to wipe with water the excess silicone off, because I don't want to introduce any chemicals or anything. I want it to stick as well as possible. So I'm not going to wash the excess off the face at this moment. I'll wash her completely at the end. Dry. I'll slightly lift her up so we can get to her the neck a little bit. Right, that was too high. There we are. Alright, so it does last quite a long time when it's heavily diluted, so this should last me the whole of the front of this body. So I'm just going to apply as long as I can, as far as I can reach. I'm going to do her body and arms, maybe her little bits there. Up to her neck, I know her neck's done. Hands. I'm going to do both sides of her hands at this stage because it's really difficult to just do one side. The other arm. Actually, I think I'll do the whole of her arm, because when it's matted it doesn't stick the same as it does when you're just doing sealing or painting, so I think it'll be okay. It's very easy to miss bits on the arm. Right, again, I'm going to wipe off as much as I can, drag it off with the brush so there's nothing so it becomes damp rather than shiny wet. Not sure I want any bits of fluff. Even though it's a diluted layer of silicone and I'm only doing a very, very light coat because I'm dragging it back off again, it still will be sticky enough to hold the matting powder. Okay, I think we're ready for the powder. I'm just dabbing it literally so that it just touches the surface. I don't want to pull the surface off, back off again, so I'm just very, very lightly touching the surface. It doesn't matter if there's a bit of an accumulation of the powder, but I do tend to like to just make sure that there's nothing collecting in the creases. So the powder that falls off, you can pick it up again and reuse it. So the areas where I actually want a gloss, a more shiny finish, like the lips and the inside of the ear and maybe a little bit around the eye, I can go back afterwards and re-shine that. So don't worry too much about keeping things shiny at this stage. The main thing is to get a really good smooth coverage with very little build-up of the powder. There we are, I think she's done. That bit's done, so I'm going to pop her back in the oven again. 10-15 minutes is all she needs. Okay, same thing again with the legs. I'm just going to, I actually think this is still okay, so apply this. I think I'll do the same as I did with the arms and do both sides of the legs, so everything's covered. So I'm just going to pop her clean. So I'm going to do the same as I did with the arms, and I'm going to do the whole of the leg, not necessarily the bottom, because I can do that when I come to do the back. Drag off the worst of it. Okay. As before. just love chubby baby legs, which is why I tend to do legs quite chubby. So make sure it hasn't collected in the creases and wrinkles, which I don't think it has. So when you apply and also in between the toes, just make sure all the little nooks and crannies don't get powder collected on them. There we are. Okay, and she's ready to have her legs baked. Okay, there's just the back and the rest of the back of the head to do now, so I'll just do that really quickly, hopefully. Always let it cool down before you do the next bit, because otherwise the silicone will go on and immediately start curing on the hot surface, and you really don't want that. Right, do that as much as I can. On the back of the head. Obviously this is going to be rooted, so it won't show. Okay, not too many creases on this part, so it should be fairly easy to make sure there's nothing, no excess silicone. Bit, hopefully. It just feels like applying talc on a baby. Try not to breathe this stuff in because it's not nice. It doesn't smell or anything, but it's basically very, very fine granules of silicone, so it's not something you want sitting on your lungs, really. It's not toxic, but it's a man-made product, so you really don't want that. You don't want to be breathing it in too much. Okay, that goes into the oven now for the final one. Okay, she's all baked now. I'm going to get her out the oven and wash off the matting powder. First of all, just a rinse. I'll be fixing her eyes in next, but She looks a bit better like that, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Okay, what I'm going to do is just give her a really good wash, make sure all the excess powder's off. So literally just very liquid, washing up liquid, whatever. Just give her a really good wash gently. I'm not actually rubbing the surface because it's just my hands. I'm not actually rubbing at her, but I really do make sure that the excess powder's off at this stage. And it leaves a lovely, nice peachy skin texture to her surface. None of that shiny silicone anymore. Okay, I will rinse her off. So her skin surface is now not only completely sealed, it's, you can't really see it, but it is completely matte now. I'll start drying her. To dab her dry. No rubbing, but the surface is really quite strong now. Well, completely waterproof. So I'll be fixing her eyes in securely next, and also go back and touch up the bits that I want shiny, which are the little lips and maybe under her nose, her eyes, around her eyes, her ears, all the bits where you'd get a little bit of moisture. Okay, put those back in. So there she is. Ready for her hair. Little Lucy. This is Sam's Lucy. I think she's going to come and collect her next week, so I'll have to get on with the hair now pretty quickly. There she is. Isn't she a cutie? Okay.